Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day 1547 of our daily content grind. We talked about the finale of Earthspark yesterday, and there's a lot of things about it that I would really like to pluck out and make full topics out of, because I could continue to have thoughts and topics on them for a while. But we're going to let it breathe for a bit. We're not going to go straight to that. Instead, I'm going to talk about one aspect that is particularly irking me, and it has to do with Scorponok. If you follow my channel for a while, you will know that Scorponok is my favorite of the city formers, or what we now call Titans. Love the design, love the colors, and it's tied to some particular feelings from childhood. To make it as short as possible, when I was a kid, I was with a babysitter when both my parents were at work. Said babysitter's stepson had an actual Scorponok, and I would beg to be able to play with it, and instead he would just take it out of its box, show me what it did, put it back in the box, tuck it away under his bed, and I would never get to touch it. So I would, according to my mom, I would just go home crying over this because my parents couldn't afford the big fancy toy that he got. So it stuck with me for a long time. I think it really endeared me more to Scorponok than normal Transformers. But there's another reason we will get to why Scorponok is so burned into my brain. But it's also one of the reasons why I'm tired of seeing Scorponok depicted so weirdly. He's one of the most inconsistent depictions in all of Transformers. And admittedly, a lot of times it's just characters using the name. But for the most part, we're following trends with a character I do not like. In Earthspark, for instance, he's just the muscle of the team. He's not completely brainless. He's not talking like a Dinobot or anything, but he's definitely not very bright. He's definitely just the brute of the team. And guess what? It's not even the only Transformer cartoon treating him like that now. Cyberworld over on YouTube, basically the same thing. He is very animalistic. He refers to himself by name, so now we are getting into Dinobot level of intelligence. And he's exceptionally easy to sway. You start mentioning friendship with Scorponok, he immediately wants to be your friend and will not, will turn against whoever to be on your side. Kind of makes you feel bad for the guy. He just wants to be friends. He just wants to be left alone. He doesn't want anyone hurting him, basically. But still, he's just this dumb, brainless brute of a character who's just meant to be a big obstacle for the series storyline. To be fair, there's worse Scorponoks out there. I mean, I could get into the live-action versions of Scorponok, and both of them are terrible. The first one is, at the very least, a cool set piece, it's a really cool special effect. See him bursting out of the sand, tail and little feelers all, approaching the soldiers and everything. It is a really, really cool scene. It leaves a very, very large impression. It's fine for what it is, but Scorponok really is just reduced to an animal. He is Blackout's pet at best. So it's a little bit disappointing. It's a little bit disappointing when you hear Scorponok's going to be in the movie. Ooh, cool. He's just a big bug. He's just a big, mean bug. Oh, but it could be worse. We could go to Rise of the Beast, where he has many, many mean bugs. Scorponok was ground fodder in that movie. He was the grunt soldier, mass-produced, completely silent, and not really a character. Really just a body for Autobots to body. Okay, I could have thought that one up better. Point being, he was just the grunt. He was an auto trooper. He was a generic seeker. He was a reflector. Whatever normal Transformer soldier you want to say, that's his role in that movie. To exist and get shot, and then have 50 more of him exist to get shot. And that's all he did for the movie. That's the amount of Scorponok gets for any of the live-action movies, which is very disappointing to me. Oh, but don't worry. It's not the only Transformer media that treated him like that. Remember Season 3 of the Netflix series? Yeah, we got Beast Wars Scorponok. He didn't talk or do anything. And keep in mind, the Predacons in the Netflix series accounts for 2 characters. It is Megatron, who is just a fanboy of G1 Megatron, and it's embarrassing to watch, and Black Arachnia, who is a surprise lesbian. Good for her, but also weird to bring that up out of nowhere. And that just left Scorponok, who was, again, producing mass numbers, had no lines, had no character or personality. He's there for the heroes to shoot a lot. And that makes me sad for Scorponoks. Now, again, these are different versions of Scorponok. And to be fair, they also did the G1 style of Scorponok in the Netflix series as well. He is a Season 2 character. And while only a 1-episode character, he's at least one that leaves something of an impression. He's not a big brute. He actually speaks when he needs to speak, and he speaks well. He does not speak in caveman. And you know what? I will take that. As far as like modern depictions of Scorponok go, that's at least a step up. I will accept that as an improvement. But it is still that Netflix series that we know is not very well written in the first place. He, again, is just a really big obstacle for the Transformers, Autobot and Decepticon alike, because he's just this gigantic looming threat they have no answer for. That seems to be mostly his role these days. That's 3. I believe the 3 most recent, technically. Can't remember when the Netflix series came out. Probably for the best. Still, it's frustrating to me. I really, really like Scorponok. Why is he being discouraged this way? Why is the man being disrespected like this? Now let's go into some. We'll be fair here. Let's look at some of the other depictions of Scorponok. Maybe we have something to actually root for here. Beast Wars. Okay, we just saw the Kingdom version in animation. Here's the OG Beast Wars Scorponok. Thankfully, there's only one of him, but also, he's a mixed bag. He is an exceptionally mixed bag. So you'll find episodes where he does refer to himself by name, and he's talking very simplistically, again in that Dinobot caveman kind of vibe. But also there's episodes where he's a bioengineer making poisonous weaponry, and he comes across, he proclaims himself as Megatron's second in command. Given the rest of everybody in that crew, I can see why he gets the second in command title. That said, though, he's inconsistent for a very weird reason. If you've never looked at my videos about the behind the scenes of what Beast Wars was before it became Beast Wars, there was originally another Predacon planned for the series, Insecticon, another one of the basics. He was going to be written kind of how Scorponok was written in some of those episodes. Simplistic, self-name calling, etc. Very dumb. Waspinator kind of took some of that away. But there's remnants. There's remnants of how they moved the script around to account for removing the character in a few episodes. There is an episode where Waspinator sounds normal. It's the Power Surge episode that starring Pterosaur. Waspinator in there sounds completely normal because they were shuffling around lines that were originally, planned for Insecticon. And then you had the other depiction of Scorponok where he's just acting super dumb, where again, that's because of script shifting to make up for an absent character. It does leave Scorponok as a back and forth between 2 personalities. Never really explained, unfortunately. But even when he's competent, he's still kind of written to be a goof. He still gets blown up and finished off in episodes in very weird, silly ways. So we can't take him too seriously. And of course he died. He died to a lava pit. We can look at RID 2015's take on Scorponok. Admittedly, not one I'm as familiar with. What I do remember from the series is he's very quick to temper, very short-tempered character, but he does have brawn to back it up. But he also is just kind of subservient to oh, what's his name? Steeljaw. Still weird to me they would randomly take an Autobot name, just randomly make it like the lead Decepticon in a series. It's still so weird to me. But point being, he is still just kind of depicted as muscle. He's not the leader character that the original one was. He's certainly not my Scorponok. We could go further here and go to Energon Scorponok, who kind of has similar issues. He's interesting during the first part of the story, where he's kind of playing as a double agent, obeying Megatron as one of his Decepticons, but really loyal to Alpha Q and his intentions. That's fine. I like that. You know, and you do put some semblance of leadership in because he's technically the leader of the Terracons, and he himself is a smarter character, powerful warrior, etc., etc. And he's got some redeeming qualities, you know, especially when the Autobots and Decepticons have to team up with Unicron in the picture. You know, you get to see different sides of him. But then Energon did what Energon always does. They make the character mind-wiped and subservient to Galvatron. Or Megatron, depending on what episode you are in. I hate this stuff. I hate when they do things like this. Like, he has no character agency now, whatsoever. He's just super loyal to Megatron, and that is really it. All characterization previously goes away. You might as well just have a brand new character. And Galvatron did that with everybody in that series. He did it to Starscream. He kind of does it to Demolishor. Kind of does it to Tidal Wave when he becomes Mirage. You know, it really does take a lot out of that series when you realize just how many have been mentally influenced by Megatron. So you really realize they're not really characters. They're mind warped. Now, Scorponok kind of falls into that realm too. So, again, at least the design is close, but we're still missing a lot. We're still missing the character. You can see where, like, my frustration comes from. He is depicted incredibly inconsistently no matter what universe he is in. Though, admittedly, only some of these are meant to homage the original G1. Others are just name dumps because they had other Scorpions they wanted to do. So let's focus on the OGs, okay? So we'll focus on the Scorponoks that were. And as far as the G1 cartoon goes, we don't really have to talk about it for too long. Scorponok is really only a big major threat in the final battle of the final episode. So Rebirth ends off with Galvatron and the Headmaster, Zarak. It's like weirdly on even footing as far as like Decepticon command. Like they're co-piloting a ship to flying away from Cybertron. It's a weird scene, but also Galvatron is putting up with Zarak. But you can definitely tell that there is a schemer behind that. Like, if given more episodes, he could have been a fascinating character. But it's Rebirth. We have 3 episodes to wrap up this series and introduce a whole bunch of brand new toys for everyone to go out and buy. And then we just need to get out of here. So, we don't get a whole lot of time with him. If we want time with the character, we have to go to Mega Zarak in the Japanese Headmaster series. This one is scheming and conniving as well. He's got power to back it up, and he has opportunity, which is the most important part. Mega Zarak takes over for the Decepticons after Galvatron gets buried in the ice in the Arctic from the Headmasters. And he's basically convinced all the Decepticons that Galvatron is still alive and giving orders through him. So it's all his own machinations. This is how he immediately gains loyalty from the Decepticons in the series. Admittedly, it works, so it can't be a bad plan or anything. Obviously, something went right there. So he definitely plays a much more major role, and he gets to be the main villain of Headmasters, and, you know, he doesn't make a bad villain either. Like, I enjoy watching Headmasters. So, this one, not too bad. This one did well enough that he comes back as Black Zarak, so we get another round of him being a very ominous and powerful villain. But that's still not where my love of Scorponok lies, you know, in my desire to see him return to his roots. his real roots. And for that, we need to go to the comic books. And when you talk about modern Transformer comic books in general for Transformers, you jump to IDW 1.0 because we get so many good characters and depictions in that series. Well, Scorponok is a bit of a mixed bag. You could view him one way or another. It's very much a personal preference about how you feel about him, because he's very much playing the Mad Doctor. Rather than being like a leading force of the Decepticons, he's clearly a powerful warrior, but he's almost this weird bioengineer type character who's always kind of interested in the next stage of Decepticon evolution. So he does a crazy very early on in IDW 1.0's run and forcibly converts Sunstreaker into a headmaster. Yay! And there's no body horror involved in this storyline whatsoever. So he starts off like that and then ends off pregnant. He ends off pregnant. I don't know why this storyline was done. By the time they did the storyline, they had to have known that they were going to reboot the universe for 2.0 and that this storyline wasn't going to go anywhere. Why did they randomly give Scorponok a baby? It's one of the best, like, out of context images to send to someone who is not familiar with Transformers, because even if you know Transformers, this is still weird. But no, if I want the Scorponok that really fueled my imagination, the one that made me love that toy, we have to go to Marvel. And I don't talk about Marvel comic books much in this channel, but in this case, this is one of the few that actually stuck with me. Because again, he is a powerful leader character and leads a good chunk of the Decepticons when Ratbat is leading the main force on Earth. And then after the whole Underbase thing happened, he shows a bit of a scheming side where he manages to take control over Decepticons in general to become the big bad. Now, there are traits about him that were consistent across these depictions of hatred of Fortress Maximus, because that's just what you do in Transformers. If you were designed to counteract somebody at the toy shelf, and that's exactly basically what he was. He was built as the counter to Fortress Maximus, one Autobot versus one Decepticon. So they played to that in the comic books. They made the two rivals. But the thing with Scorponok is, as a leader, he actually seems a little bit more troop-focused and a little bit more caring than the likes of Ratbat or Megatron, or Shockwave, who would come up later. He seems to have more respect for the Autobots, too. One of the best parts about this is how often Zarak is willing to just set aside the war for the sake of a greater good moment. And they did have greater good moments there. During his leadership, they had to deal with both the Underbase and Unicron. So there's lots of reasons to team up with the Autobots, and he's the one who is down for that. He actually is wise enough as a leader to understand greater good in these situations. And he gains a respect for Optimus Prime in the process of working through these crises with him. I mentioned Shockwave. So, if you really want to know, one half of my love of Scorponok comes from that little bit of childhood trauma over a big fancy toy. And the other half is this. I didn't see too many of the comic books as a kid, but I had this one. And this image of Scorponok and Shockwave just battling each other through the water. You know, this just, like, I don't know why this resonated. I don't know why this burned into my brain for my entire life. It just did. And it's one of the things that endeared me so much to Scorponok in general. I also loved, like, his character arc in the books, because eventually he does admit that there is, like, a fear of death, of course. And that comes up with Unicron, where he is just terrified to face something this overwhelming. But he overcomes it. As a Decepticon, not only does he earn Optimus Prime's respect, Optimus calling him old friend in his final moments, but he is shown to have one of the most noble sacrifices in Transformers. Long before Dinobot made one, Scorponok made one very similar. Yeah, this is a really fascinating take on the character, and it's a very different depiction of a Decepticon villain. You know, someone who's actually respectful of Optimus Prime and might actually be able to work with the Autobots from time to time. You don't hear of that at all anymore. So that's really where I go when I say, like, this ain't my Scorponok. He looks cool, but where is my Scorponok? Where is the nuanced, powerful leader of the Decepticons? Where is that, like, where is that, like, villain with a noble heart that is really fascinating to read and has a lot of story potential? We haven't gotten it in a long time. I don't think we're ever going to get it anymore because the brand is so hard focused on just sticking to the main villains, Optimus, Megatron, etc. So he might be down to just being a grunt and a brute forever, which is very upsetting, but you never know. Anyway, that's me musing for the day. Just me getting out a little bit of thoughts about one of my favorite characters that is sorely underrated. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like Scorponok? Maybe you like Scorponok now. Maybe you like the monstrous Scorponok. Or do you actually have some fond memories of when he was treated as a major threat and a major villain? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I will see you next time.
Hello everyone, I am Astral Agent Magnetar, a Tokusatsu VTuber, and I am streaming 4 times a week over on Twitch, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday afternoons, and a special late night one on late Friday/early Saturday. So come watch, come hang out, and let's make an impact together.